The first thing that hit me when I woke up was the scratchy feeling in my throat. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. It took me a moment to realize there was something lodged in my throat. Something firm. As I glanced around, it became clear I was in a hospital room, with tubes and wires snaking out from various parts of my body. I noticed a cast wrapped around my left arm and could feel the tightness of bandages on my face. What on earth happened? I thought, bewildered. How long have I been out? What's going on with me? I attempted to move but found it a struggle. Just then, the door to my room swung open, and a nurse walked in to check on me. She glanced at my chart, took my vitals, and then quietly left. A few minutes later, she returned, this time with someone I assumed was the doctor. He also checked my vitals, then shined a light in my eyes. After a bit of murmuring to himself, he spoke to the nurse, and together they carefully removed the tube that had been shoved down my throat. That explained why I couldn't speak earlier. "Welcome back to the land of the living, Mr. Carter," the doctor said as he straightened up. That was me, by the way, Tyler Carter, but most folks call me Ty. I tried to talk, but my mouth was so dry it felt like sandpaper. The nurse handed me an ice chip, and I let it dissolve slowly. Then she offered another. "How long?" I managed to rasp out. "You've been here for 10 days, Mr. Carter," the doctor replied. "You had some swelling in your brain, so we induced a coma to give your head time to heal. You took quite a hit to the skull. You also ended up with a broken arm." He turned to the nurse. "Why don't you call Mrs. Carter and let her know her husband's awake?" he suggested. I shook my head at that. "No," I croaked out. The doctor gave me a puzzled look. "Why not?" "She's the reason I'm in here," I said, taking in another ice chip. "I see," the doctor replied thoughtfully. "Perhaps we should notify the police then." I nodded. "Yes, and I'll need a divorce lawyer too." The doctor chuckled. "We'll get the police for you. A detective has already been inquiring about you, but you'll have to find your own divorce attorney." I nodded again. "Thanks anyway," I said. He smiled slightly, then instructed the nurse to take me for x-rays. After they wheeled me back to my room, a man wearing a trench coat walked in and introduced himself. "Detective Roberts, Metro PD," he said, flashing his badge. "You feel up to answering a few questions?" "Yeah," I said, sipping some water. He pulled up a chair next to my bed, set a pad and an audio recorder on the tray in front of me, and switched the recorder on. "Mind if I record this?" "No, go ahead," I replied. He spoke into the recorder, noting the date, time, and location, then looked at me. "All right, Mr. Carter, tell me what happened." "Well, I'd just gotten home after spending a couple of days in Cleveland with a client. I wrapped things up a day early and was eager to get back home to see Emily, my wife. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed an unfamiliar car parked there. I figured she had company, maybe one of her friends from work. I parked, went inside, and saw most of the house was dark, except for a light coming from upstairs. Then I heard moaning. I had a pretty good idea what was going on, but I headed upstairs anyway. And that's when I saw them, Emily and some guy going at it in our bed. I couldn't believe my eyes. I stepped into the room and shouted. They both turned to me like I was some kind of alien. The guy looked stunned. I went after him, ready to knock him out, but he beat me to it, literally. He punched me square in the face with the biggest fist I'd ever seen. Next thing I know, I'm waking up here. "Aha," Detective Roberts murmured, leaning forward. "Did you recognize the guy with your wife?" "No, I've never laid eyes on him before." "Did you have any idea your wife was seeing someone else?" he pressed. "I had a hunch something was up, but I wasn't certain." Wait a minute, I suddenly remembered. I just recalled. There are cameras set up in the house. I hired a private investigator right before my last trip. I wanted to see if my wife was cheating on me. He wired the place for both audio and video just before I left. Everything was supposed to be stored on a cloud server. I never got the chance to check when I got home. It's probably still all there. Detective Roberts reached into his bag and pulled out a laptop. "Think you can access that from here?" he asked. "I think so. The login info is scribbled on the back of a card he gave me. It should still be in my wallet." The detective walked over to the small wardrobe in the room and retrieved my wallet from the back pocket of my pants. I rummaged through it and found the card. "Here it is," I said, pulling the card out and handing it to him. He passed my wallet back and slipped it into my pants pocket. "Angus McMillan," Detective Roberts read aloud, looking at the name on the front of the card. "Is this your PI?" "Yeah, that's him." "He's the one who called 911, the detective mentioned. "From what I've heard, he gave a statement to the officers, then followed the ambulance here, and provided the hospital with your insurance information. Have you spoken to him yet?" "Yeah," I replied. "He told me he found me lying on the floor at the foot of the stairs and called 911 right away. There was no one else in the house when he found me. Let's see what the video shows us," he added as he powered up his laptop and connected to the hospital's Wi-Fi. Once connected, he turned the screen toward me so I could log in. I typed in the credentials Angus had jotted down on the card and was greeted by a directory of video files. I selected the one that matched the time I was at the house and hit play. The video began with Emily, my soon-to-be ex-wife, walking into the living room through the front door, followed closely by a huge, muscular, bald-headed man. "Is that the man who hit you?" Roberts asked. "Yeah, that's him. I've never seen him before that day, though." We kept watching the video. After glancing around the room, Emily turned to the man and gave him a passionate kiss. "Come on," she urged him. "Let's go upstairs and finalize our deal." The big man sneered. "Yeah, let's get it done," he said. They headed upstairs, and the video cut off shortly after. I remembered Angus telling me the cameras were motion-activated, so I went back to the directory and double-clicked on the next file in the list. The new video started with Emily and the towering brute walking into the bedroom. Emily walked over to her side of the dresser, opened one of the drawers, and pulled out a thick envelope. She handed it to the man, who pulled out a massive stack of cash. He quickly counted it, then slipped it back into the envelope. "Half now, half when the job's done," Emily said, just like we agreed. Holy hell, I thought. Was she paying this guy to kill me? He sneered as he eyed her. "Well, sweetheart, how about we seal this deal properly?" he suggested. Emily grinned as she looked him over. Then she started to strip. Before long, she was standing naked in front of him. The man undressed too, and the two of them embraced once more before getting onto the bed. "Which side does your husband sleep on?" he asked. "Why does it matter?" she asked, her voice curious. "That's the side I want to screw you on," he replied with a twisted grin. She giggled, pointing to the side closest to the door. "He sleeps right there," she said. "Perfect," he said, yanking the covers back. "Get over there." "You're so bad," she teased. We watched in silence as the two of them had sex on my side of the bed. That's when I barged in and caught them in the act. "What the hell is going on here?" I yelled in the video. The two of them stopped what they were doing just long enough to look at me. Emily had this smug look on her face as the big guy stood up. I saw myself charge at the much larger man, but he was quicker. He pulled back and landed a punch right in the middle of my face, knocking me down in an instant. Then he grabbed me by the collar and pummeled me again, and again, and again. He kept punching me in the face several times before dragging my limp body out of the room. Emily got out of bed and followed, not even bothering to cover herself. The video ended right there. I went back to the directory and selected the next video. It showed 3 sets of feet at the top of the staircase. One set of feet, mine, was the only one with shoes. The big guy picked me up and literally tossed me down the stairs. My body just lay there, motionless at the bottom. "Is he dead?" Emily asked. "Not sure," the man replied. "Want me to finish him off right now?" "Not in my house," Emily shot back. "I don't want to clean up more of his blood than I have to. Let him lie there. Maybe he'll do us both a favor and die." The man grunted. "Even if he doesn't, I can come back and finish the job. Let's get out of here. We can finish what we started at my hotel." A couple of minutes later, Emily and the guy came back down the stairs, now fully dressed, and walked out of the house, stepping right over my body. The video ended shortly after that. Out of curiosity, I opened the next video. In it, Angus was seen coming into the house. He checked on me, then pulled out his phone and called 911. He stayed by my side until the paramedics and police arrived. I stopped the video and checked the directory. There were no more recordings after that. Whatever else those two did, they made sure to take it somewhere else. What do we do now? I asked. Well, first, we need to locate your wife and her accomplice and bring them in. Are you sure you've never met that guy before? No, never. But it sounds like you know who he is. His real name is James Harrington, Detective Roberts said. He's known as Jimmy the Hammer. He's a hitman the feds have been after for a series of murders. He's notorious for killing his victims with his bare hands after seducing their wives. You're lucky to be alive. What puzzles me is why your wife would want you dead. From what I gather, you're just a regular salesman. Account representative, I corrected him. I do a bit of traveling and some sales, but mostly I focus on keeping clients satisfied by making sure they stay profitable. Any trouble in the marriage? Roberts asked. Not until recently, I admitted. Are you one of those guys who fool around when you're on the road? Roberts inquired. You mean, do I cheat on my wife? Absolutely not. Why would I? You saw her. Would you be out chasing women if you had that at home? No, can't say that I would, Roberts admitted. So revenge doesn't seem like the motive. Tell me, do you have a life insurance policy? Yeah, I've got $1 million policy through work. It pays double if I die in an accident. And your wife is listed as the beneficiary? Roberts asked, his tone serious. Yeah, she is. But there's more to it. What else? He inquired. I recently won a lottery prize, $3 million after taxes. I was planning to surprise Emily with a cruise for our anniversary. Did she know about the money? Roberts asked, raising an eyebrow. I told her I won, but I didn't mention how much. I usually manage our finances, so I didn't think she'd notice. She rarely ever looks at the bank statements. So if something were to happen to you, she could potentially walk away with as much as $5 million, right? Roberts asked, piecing it together. I guess so, I said after mulling it over. You really think she'd try to kill me for money? It's one of the oldest motives in the book, Roberts said, shaking his head. Why don't you log into your account and see how much is left? He suggested. I did as he asked, and found that Emily had made 3 withdrawals of $5,000 over the last 12 days. The rest of the money was still in the account. While you're at it, why not go ahead and cancel any joint credit cards you have? Once you're done, I'll make a call and put a temporary freeze on the account, just until we have her in custody, he advised. I followed his advice, canceling our joint credit cards and reporting her ATM card as stolen. Once I was done, he made a call to get an order to freeze Emily out of the account. Any idea where your wife might be now? He asked after he finished. I shook my head. No clue. Normally I'd say she'd be at home around this time, but right now I have no idea. Angus might know. Your PI? Roberts asked. I nodded. Yeah, give him a call, he said, handing me his phone. We've been playing phone tag the last few days, so he'll be expecting a call from me. I took the phone and dialed Angus's number. He picked up after the second ring. McMillan, he answered. Angus, it's Tyler Carter. Ty, you're awake, Angus exclaimed. Thank God, I was so worried. But this isn't your phone, is it? No, I'm here with Detective Roberts at the hospital. Even better, Angus replied. I've been trying to reach him, but we kept missing each other. Ty, do you know where Emily is? I asked. Yes, put me on speaker and I'll fill you both in. I put the phone on speaker and set it on the tray in front of me. This is Detective Roberts, the detective said. Can you hear me okay, Mr. McMillan? Loud and clear, Angus replied. And please, call me Angus. Mr. McMillan was my father. We all chuckled at that. So, where is Mrs. Carter now? Roberts asked. She's at the international airport, and she just bought a ticket to Chicago. The plane doesn't leave for another 4 hours, so you should have enough time to catch her. What about James Harrington? Roberts asked. Is he with her? Not at the moment, Angus said. But from what I've gathered, he's supposed to meet her there in the next couple of days. All right, Roberts said. Angus, keep an eye on her. I'll make a call and have her picked up. Will do, Angus said before hanging up. The detective then called his partner and instructed him to get an arrest warrant for Emily. He made another call, putting out an APB, all points bulletin, for Harrington. Just as he finished, the doctor came back into the room. How much longer will Mr. Carter need to stay here? Roberts asked. Probably a few more days, the doctor replied. He's healing well, but he took a serious beating. Yes, that's clear, Roberts said. I'm going to arrange for a couple of officers to stand guard over him while he's here, if that's okay. That's fine by me, as long as they don't get in the way, the doctor replied. Good, Robert said, nodding. He then turned to me. Take care of yourself, Tyler. We'll stay in touch. If you need anything, don't hesitate to call. Thanks, Detective. My pleasure, he responded, rising from his chair. Miss Reynolds? Always a pleasure. Good to see you too, Detective Roberts, she replied with a smile. After he left, I turned to Alicia. I take it you two know each other? Yes. I represented him during his divorce, she said. So, I'll get this paperwork ready and have your wife served while she's in jail. Let me write you a check for your retainer. Could you grab my wallet from my pants, please? Of course, she said, retrieving my wallet. I have a habit of keeping a blank check in my wallet for emergencies, so I pulled it out and filled it in for the amount she requested. She smiled as she accepted the check and tucked it into her briefcase. We'll be in touch, Tyler, she said, standing up. Good luck to you. Thank you for everything, I replied. I watched her walk out the door, then turned my attention back to the television. They say all good things must come to an end, and that saying couldn't be more true. A couple of weeks later, the doctor told me I was healed enough to go home. During that time, I had several visitors, friends, co-workers, Angus, and Detective Roberts, who kept me updated on the case against Emily and the ongoing manhunt for Harrington. Roberts informed me that Harrington had been charged with conspiracy to commit murder. Emily was served with divorce papers while in jail and surprisingly agreed to end our marriage without a fight. Alicia told me she signed the papers without any argument, which was unexpected. In 60 days, I would officially be a free man, she said. I got the house and all of our assets. Emily would be allowed to keep her car, clothes, and personal belongings. I called her parents, and they arranged to pick everything up. What they did with it after that was their concern. Angus picked me up from the hospital and drove me home. Just curious, do you have a gun? He asked. Just an old shotgun my dad gave me when I was 17, I said. It was a birthday present, and my dad used to take me out shooting trap and skeet. Those were some of my happiest memories. I still have the shotgun, but I haven't fired it in a long time. It's been sitting oiled up in my locked gun case. I also have a box of shells for it. Why do you ask? Harrington is still out there, Angus said. You might want to keep it close. Damn, I thought. That night, I pulled the old shotgun out and gave it a once-over. It was in good shape, even though I hadn't used it in ages. I took out the box of shells and loaded it up. I considered sleeping in the master bedroom, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. Not after everything I had witnessed there. So I slept in my recliner in the living room, the loaded shotgun within arm's reach. It turned out to be a smart move. I woke up late that night, thinking I heard scratching outside the house. I grabbed the shotgun and looked around from where I sat. With only one good arm, I decided to use my left arm, still in a cast, as a rest for the shotgun. I looked toward the sliding glass door that leads to the backyard, and thought I saw the silhouette of a large man just inside. As I focused, the figure moved, and I saw a large pistol in one of his hands. Apparently, he hadn't spotted me yet. Otherwise, I'd probably be dead. I figured I could catch him off guard, so I reached over and flipped on the lamp. That's when I saw him, James Harrington, armed and dangerous. He looked at me, clearly surprised. As he started to raise his pistol, I brought up my shotgun and fired. The blast knocked him back against the screen door, almost tearing it off its tracks. He managed to fire a shot from his pistol, but his bullet only hit the ceiling. I stood up, pumped another round into the chamber, and fired again. This time, the shot hit him square in the chest, sending his body crashing through the screen door. I saw him lying on the deck, blood pooling around him. I grabbed the phone and called 911. After loading another round into the chamber, I cautiously walked to the door. I stood over his body, ready to fire a third time when I noticed flashing lights outside. Within moments, the house was swarming with officers, their guns drawn. I carefully set the shotgun down and raised my hands to show I wasn't a threat. One of the officers checked Harrington for a pulse and shook his head. Another called for an ambulance. I spent the next hour or so giving my statement to the police. Just when I thought it was all over, the ambulance arrived, and Detective Roberts pulled up behind the paramedics. They checked Harrington, then zipped his lifeless body into a bag. As they loaded him onto a gurney, they paused to let Roberts get a good look at his face. "You okay?" Roberts asked me. I nodded, still a bit shaken by the whole ordeal. I'd never shot a man before, let alone killed anyone. The only thing I'd ever killed was a clay pigeon. "Yeah, I'll be fine," I said, though I wasn't entirely sure if I believed it. Roberts turned to the other officers in the room. "You guys about done here?" he asked. "We're just wrapping up now, Detective," a sergeant replied. "Good," Roberts said. "Make sure I get a report on this ASAP." "Will do," the sergeant confirmed. Roberts looked back at me. "How about I buy you a cup of coffee once they're finished here?" he suggested. "Yeah, that sounds good. Let me throw on some clothes. I doubt they'd appreciate me showing up in my pajamas." "Probably not," Roberts agreed, with a slight smile. I headed upstairs and changed into a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, then went back down. The officers were just leaving, and Roberts was waiting for me. "Ready?" he asked. "Yeah, I'm ready." We left the house and got into his car. He drove us to an all-night coffee shop not far from my place. We went inside and ordered our drinks. It had been a while since I'd had a caramel mocha, so I went for a large one. Roberts chuckled as he paid for it. "I thought you said you wanted coffee," he teased. "Not a sugar bomb." "It's been a while since I've had one, so I figured I'd treat myself," I replied. We sat down and took a sip of our drinks. "How are you holding up?" he asked, his tone more serious now. "I'm okay, I guess," I said, though I wasn't entirely sure. "Never shot anyone before." "I get it, Tyler," he said. "It's not something you ever get used to. You ever kill anyone?" "Yeah," I admitted. "The first time I almost threw up. I was a rookie cop, fresh out of the academy, hadn't even been on the job a full month. Just like tonight, it was either him or me, and I was determined it wasn't going to be me in that body bag." "And you had the benefit of training," I said, feeling the weight of what had just happened. "Yeah, well, you can train someone all you want, but I don't think anyone's ever truly prepared to deal with something like that," Roberts replied. "You got lucky. You know that, right? Harrington was a professional killer." "Yeah," I said quietly. "I know." "Well, the important thing is that you're alive, and he's not," Roberts said. "Fortunately for you, we have castle doctrine in this state, so you won't face any charges." "Thank goodness for that," I said with a sigh of relief. Roberts smiled as he chuckled. He reached into his pocket and handed me a card. I glanced at the name on it. Dr. Rose Carlson. "I think you should give her a call," Roberts suggested. "She's the best counselor in the field. If anyone can help you work through all this, it's her." "Thanks. I'll do that," I told him, slipping the card into my shirt pocket. We spent some more time sitting there, drinking coffee and chatting about various things. Fishing, football, and other guy stuff. After we finished our drinks, Roberts checked his watch. "I've got to get back to work," he said. "You ready to head out?" "Yeah, I'm ready," I replied. We tossed our empty cups in the trash and left the coffee shop. He dropped me off at my house and wished me well. "Don't forget to call Dr. Carlson. I'll be in touch." "Thanks again, Detective Roberts," I told him. I watched him drive away, then headed back into my house. I tried to get some sleep, but it just wouldn't come. Finally, around 7:30 a.m., I got up, took a shower, and had some breakfast. There was still one thing left for me to do. After making a call, I went to the county jail where Emily was being held. I sat in the visiting area and watched as Emily was brought out. She looked exhausted, and the orange jumpsuit she wore did nothing to flatter her. She sat down in the chair across from me and picked up the phone on her side of the plexiglass partition between us. I picked up the phone on my side. "Hello, Emily," I said. "Hello, Tyler," she responded, her voice flat. "What do you want?" "I signed the papers. You've got everything now." "I want some answers," I told her. "How long has this been going on with Harrington?" "I guess you're entitled to know," she said. "Not very long, maybe 2 or 3 months." "Why?" I asked, my voice tinged with hurt. Was I not good enough as a husband or a lover? Did I do something wrong? Why would you rip my heart out like this? I don't know, she said, looking down. I guess I was drawn in by his charm. We had talked about having kids, and I got scared. I was afraid I'd end up fat and unattractive, and you wouldn't want me anymore. That's ridiculous, Emily, and you know it. That doesn't excuse what you did. There has to be something more. What was it? Was it the money? Emily looked away, guilt written all over her face. Well, I guess so, she admitted. Harrington told me we could use it to run away and start fresh, maybe take a cruise around the world. Is that why you decided to have me killed? I asked, my voice cold. Harrington said he could make it happen so I'd get all the money plus your insurance, she said, without having to spend a fortune on a divorce. And he's the one who put you in touch with Harrington? I asked. She nodded. Did you know Harrington was Sylvester's uncle? I asked again. Emily nodded, her face pale. Yes, she whispered. So why sleep with Harrington? And in our bed, I pressed. He said he'd give me a discount if I did it in our bed. That's when you walked in and caught us. And you just left me there to die, I said, my voice heavy with emotion. Tears streamed down Emily's cheeks as she nodded. Yes, she stammered. I'm so sorry. Harrington is dead, I told her after a long, uncomfortable silence. She looked at me, stunned. What do you mean dead? She asked, her voice trembling. He came by to finish the job you paid him to do, I said, my tone cold. I killed him when he broke into the house. How? She whispered. With the shotgun my dad gave me when I was a kid. Blew him right back out the door. I forgot all about that shotgun, she said softly. Her eyes filled with sadness as she looked at me. I'm so sorry about everything. Do you think you could ever forgive me? I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that made the guards glance over at us. You've got to be kidding me, Emily, I said, disbelief in my voice. No, I will never forgive you for what you did, and from what I hear, you'll have the rest of your life to think about it. I hope it was worth it. Goodbye, Emily. I hung up the phone, not wanting to hear another word from her. She slowly placed her phone back on the receiver, tears streaming down her face. I stood up, turned around, and walked away without looking back. The next 2 months flew by. It took some time, but I finally got everything packed up and out of the house. After making a few minor repairs, I put the place on the market and bought a nice condo not far from my office. I was called to testify at both Emily's and Harrington's trials. The jury didn't take long to convict them on all charges. A week later, I was asked to speak at Emily's sentencing. The judge thanked me for my testimony and sentenced Emily to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Harrington received the same sentence. In a way, I ended up with a life sentence too, though mine wasn't spent behind bars. Emily's betrayal and her attempt to have me killed affected me more deeply than I could have imagined. While my body healed, I was emotionally wrecked. I spent the next 2 years in therapy with Dr. Carlson, who diagnosed me with a form of PTSD. My life became a monotonous routine. Work, come home, eat, watch TV, go to bed. I hit the gym 3 times a week and saw Dr. Carlson once a week. That was it. I couldn't even bring myself to go out or ask a woman on a date. I just didn't trust anyone anymore. As for sex, well, let's just say I got very familiar with adult movies and my right hand. Eventually, Dr. Carlson suggested that I try to move past my fears and ask someone out. I mulled it over for a while before finally mustering up the courage to take that step. But the question was, who? There were a few women at the office who had shown interest in me, but I was wary of dating coworkers. Finally, I decided to take a chance and asked Rhonda, a colleague who worked in a different department, out to dinner. To my surprise, she said yes. We had a great time, and I felt more at ease with her than I expected. We didn't sleep together on the first date. That happened on the 3rd date, and she blew my mind. We've been dating for about 6 months now, and things are going really well. She's even introduced me to her parents, and we all seem to get along just fine. Will I ever marry again? I'm not sure. Maybe someday. For now, I'm just taking things one day at a time. Who knows what the future holds?